Okay, everybody, this is Brandon from Galaxy Doc Market. Today is August 8th, 2026. It's Saturday, about 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I thought I would do something a little bit differently as the expectations for the market going forward has not changed since last week's video. But I do want to spend time going over the 2019 to 2020 setup of the blow off top that led to the COVID or pandemic crash. And I think that is very, very fitting since we are making similar patterns and we are in the middle of a blow off top. No matter what happens, this market is Teflon for bad news. It just keeps grinding higher and higher. And if you are like us, we have this technical tools necessary to understand that you do not short this market right now. That time is coming, and I think it is very close. And I think it is very important for us to review some of these charts so that we are on the same page. And I think the findings are going to be very, very striking. It's going to blow your mind at this point. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so here's the disclaimer. If you're not in my community, please pause it, read it. If you agree, please move forward. And thank you so much for following me at x.com/galaxy.market. And also like us, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. All right, so the stock market blow off top case studies, and that's what we're going to be going over for this week's video because it is something that is happening right before our eyes. And we will be studying the 2019 to 2020 COVID crash blow-off top formation. So let's get right into it. There's a lot to discuss. And so let's talk about what happened between October 2019 leading into March 31st, 2020. And we will be talking about Amazon, Tesla, SPY, and VIX as a case study. And hopefully this will help you to remain or refrain or be patient about shorting. Yes, that moment is coming. It's just that it needs to be developed at this point. So we're going to be talking about Tesla, October 2019 to March 2020, the end of March. And that is where this pandemic crash had bottomed. And while, the macroeconomic backdrops are different, but the technical setups and I guess the psychology of the markets remain the same. So let's go right in. This is from 2019 to 2020. It's a daily chart, okay? And what we want to be looking at is that the market had continually risen on average volume, okay? And sometimes below average. From December on, we had this gap up higher, and then it just moved higher and higher no matter what. Whenever it looked like it was time to short, the market pulled back and then just set up a nice little cup formation and kept going back. Little pullback here, moved higher. And now it's leading up into this, what I believe is the start of the blow off top in this sequence. And back in the beginning of 2026 in January, the blow off top formation started to happen. And so these arrows are basically pointing up to these gap up formations that we had. And so we had a couple of days of gap ups, and it's very analogous to what the SPY has been doing the last couple of days, and we'll go over that in a bit. And then we get a nice little pullback for about 3 to 5 days is about the average. In this case, it was a little bit longer. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and then we started to have volume expansion. And this is what I call this whole complex right down here and on is basically the climax top formation. We are right now forming the early stages of blow off top. As you can tell, these are all blow off tops, and then we start to get these low volume rallies with significant gaps along the way until we see these volume expansion. And that's what we call the climax top, is that when we start getting not only these big gaps, but these candles start to get gigantic, okay? Another big gap until we get this high volume gap up and a big price range, and then we stall and pull back. Now, a lot of people will make a lot of money if you time this correctly on this pullback. what you need to understand is that there's going to be a rip your face off rally that's going to mimic a blow off top or another climax top run where the bulls are going to say, yeah, it's going parabolic and we're hitting all new all-time highs and the bull market is here to stay, and you just ignore all the macroeconomic problems that may be existing. But that's not true. What you're looking for is a lower high, okay, and there is no volume expansion as you see this. And in fact, the crash that I believe is coming shortly, not tomorrow, okay, I believe we're going to have some raging bullish action in the market in the next couple of weeks, but that probably may be it. Okay, that a couple of weeks means that plus or minus another couple of weeks. I had always mentioned in my video that I thought, based on my time cycle analysis, that the crash or the correction would come towards the end of October. Well, that time frame is now shifting because we are in the early stages of blow-off top formation. Blow-off tops can last 2 to 3 weeks, and leading to about another week of climax top formation. So maybe end of September is maybe the new target date. Well, I always say this, we'll trade the market that's given to us, not the one we want. So we got to look at the signs and symptoms of what's happening right now. One thing I want to point out, folks, is that on this crash, and it's always the same way, it's on lower volume. However, the selling volume will increase during that period, but it's never going to be where the climax top volume was, right down to here. Okay, and so that's kind of the backdrop of what we have for Tesla. So let's look at the next one, and SPY from October 2019 to March 2020. And SPY behaves very, very differently. Okay, so what happened is, leading up into the pandemic crash, is that we originally had a little bit of a pullback in February, and then we started making these gap higher. Sound familiar? This is probably where we are right now. This is a daily chart, and we had these gap up and then another gap up, and then we kind of topped out, and then we had a little bit of a pullback and a recovery. Does that look familiar to our Friday action? Didn't quite hit the top, but almost got there. Okay, and then in the ensuing days, 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4 days of trying to hit, while hitting all-time highs and then moving sideways and then hitting finally one more top before everything falls apart. One thing you want to be looking at right now, we have just the average to sub-average volume. As we basically hit these top areas, okay, you're going to see these volumes, selling volumes increasing with very small price actions, and then we had the crash down, and then for the SPYs, we've started having these really larger than average volume all the way down to the bottom. Okay, and those are the things that we will be looking forward to, and that is coming. Okay, this bracket right here is indicating where we're coming from. Okay, everybody thinks the market's going to crash, and it hasn't, and I believe this is where we are, right into this area. Okay, so this is from 2020. So what's important here is that the volume expansion during the lead up into the climax top is the prevailing theme. We want to see 2 to 3 times or even greater volume expanding as we start hitting the top. Okay, and in a lot of cases, we're going to have these crashes that occur on lower than. So the prevailing theme here is the climax top formation with extreme volume, 2.5 to 3 times a normal average volume, and then the ensuing crash is going to be matching that volume or declining volume. Okay, and in fact, at the bottom of this crash, right down here as we speak, right down into this area, what you're going to see is that this is where people are going to say the world is ending. Oh my goodness, look at these volume. But it's never going to be as high as this, the top into the markets as we're leading up into it. Okay, so look at the volume. Okay, the volumes are going to increase as we hit the market tops, but it's never going to be as high as the climax top formation volume. These leading up to the climax top and blow off top volumes are sequentially going to increase because the previous volume was very, very anemic. And you know, I've been harping on the volume and the lack of volume in July in my previous videos. And this is exactly what happens. Look for the volume increase, and that's what we're looking for. Now, it doesn't mean just because you saw this video that you go back out and basically say that the market's going to crash next week or whatever the case is. We will let the markets tell us what it is. These kind of studies are required for you to be able to catch this. It's like an athlete, okay? They practice and practice. Like Kobe Bryant would practice a jump shot 10,000 times a day or whatever, okay? To practice for that moment when he recognizes that moment that he doesn't think, he executes. And it's the same thing for traders. You have to do your chart studies, okay? There's no way around it. All right, so let's look at the next one. Amazon, October 2019 to March 2020. And so on the Amazon, it's very, very interesting, partly because we've had in 2020, leading up into December, into January, the sideways consolidation, okay? We had a little gap up higher, and I believe these were the early signs of a blow-off top formation, and then it just moved sideways on very, very low volume. And then we had the Amazon is a little different because we had this humongous volume that really wasn't matched, and we had the climax top formation, this gap up higher, and then ensuing lead up higher on declining volume was the climax top. Okay, usually at these levels we're going to have these super high volumes, right, down up into here, comparable to this one, but it didn't. It basically had a massive volume, and what it did was, the way you have to look at these, this is a different variety, is to look at 2 attempts and then a breakdown as the selling volume. You got to look at for these sell volumes increasing sequentially, okay? And it basically dropped off, and then culminating in this gigantic sell-off. As it tried to recover, it failed, and everybody at this point said, hey, look, this market is done. Amazon's going to go crash to zero, okay? You're going to be hearing that at the bottom. And if you notice that the top, between the top and the bottom, literally is about 2 weeks, okay? And crashes generally do not happen all at once, and it occurs in spurts, and it's about 2-week time period. Some are as short as 5 days, okay? Just remember that. All right, so we're going to look at the VIX, October 2019 to March 2020. You're going to be blown away by the parallels that we see here, right? This is what happened previously. We had a little volatility spike, just like us in April. This happened in August. And then we just had this chopping sideways motion, really near that between 13 and 14, 12, area. Really low volatility as the market grinded higher, okay? And then, of course, all of a sudden, out of the blue, climax top occurs, and that's why it's important to identify the blow off top. This is what the VIX looks like as the market grinds higher, forming that blow off top. What is the hallmark of a blow off top? Low volume, gap higher on consecutive days. Market just grinds higher. People are incredulous at the market's resilience, and people become tired and they give up on the markets, or they think the market's going to go up forever. And it is at that point we're looking for the volume expansion and the climax top formation. Okay, so this is the VIX that we've been talking about. All right, so let's compare these previous 2019 to 2020 setups to what's happening now. So let's start there. Okay, so here's Tesla again. And here's the funny thing about Tesla. I believe Tesla has already started its crash. Okay, so it's a little ahead of the game here, and I'll show you what I mean. This is from 2020. We already went over all these, and these are the kind of the hallmarks that we're looking for. Classic signature blow-off top formation, followed by a climax top with a volume expansion. Blow-off top occurs in just average volume, and everyone thinks it's going to be. Remember, if you basically block out this right side of the chart, this is all-time highs right here. Okay, what you're going to see is a massive gaps, just continuous gaps, just relentless on high volume, and then selling off. Now let's fast forward that to today, and this is the daily chart. Going back to November of last year to current August. Okay, formation. And so what we're seeing, however, here is that we may be forming. Here's that drop off. We may be already started on the Tesla. Tesla always leads the market, and this is what I'm telling you is that I believe we are basically similar to in this area right now, formation of this area. Okay. And so the Tesla sell-off may be already done. It's just leading the way. The rest of the market needs to catch up, which is very, very odd. But it is what it is. Tesla just leads the market. Look at this market structure, very, very similar. So Tesla may have topped way back up here and then try to recover down into here, forming these two types of areas in which it tried to recover, right? And then it basically had the sell-off. Okay, so that's what I think is happening. Now, can this buck the trend and then start going higher and then putting in a climax top with the rest of them? Sure. I do believe Tesla is leading the way. It's already formed the climax top right back here and has now started to fall off. Classic climax top formations are right down into this area, and of course the head and shoulders. And now we have the sell-off and capitulation volume, and I believe it may have already bottomed, but we'll see when that blow off top for the rest of the market happens, and then we have the sell off. Let's see how Tesla behaves. It may be resilient or it may continue to sell off. That's one thing I wanted to show you. But this from the pandemic 2019 to 2020 area, this is a classic blow off top formation. The gap up higher and the declining volume, and then the climax run with its increasing volume. All right, let's look at SPY. And I believe, this is kind of the area in which we're going to start having these blow-off tops, right? And the blow-off tops started to come with these gap higher. Oops, sorry. Okay, now you're seeing that, but blow-off tops here and here, having some computer issues. And I believe this is kind of where we are, right? We topped over here. This is from 2020, folks, okay? And then we pull back, and then in the ensuing days, we start just incrementally moving higher, hitting all-time highs one more time before all hell breaks loose. So where are we when we fast forward to today? Okay, I believe we're in this space right here. We've had these two gap up higher and less than average volume. Okay, and everyone thinks, oh, this is the top. Everyone starts shorting the crap out of it, but on Friday, it just comes right up. Okay, so this is kind of where we are. We've gapped higher, we've pulled back, and then we just recover. So in the ensuing next week, probably Monday and Tuesday, I believe we're going to start to move into that 7,800, 7,900, maybe 8,000 level potentially over the next week. And what we're looking for is this volume expansion. Right now, it's below average volume. Okay. And then, of course, we have that sell-off. The sell-off is going to occur in about 2 to 3 week time period. Does not sell off in a straight line. There's going to be these rip your face off rallies for a few days that you're going to know to understand that that's the beginning phases, and these are going to be short the rips environment. Okay, then we have Amazon. Okay, so Amazon is interesting because I believe we're setting up for that exact same scenario. Okay, and then again, this bracket right here is telling us Amazon started its blow off top right here and the third one here, and then moved sideways for about 3 weeks. And then we started to have the climax top. So the climax top formation came on this heavy volume, and then it just started to move higher on lower volume. So these are different types of varieties that you can see. The main thing is we're going to see capitulation and stalling out. We already saw the big volume, and then basically sell off on increasing selling volume as we go. It's moving higher as we go into this bottoming area. So how does that look when we compare it to today? This is 2020. It looks pretty similar to what we're looking at, right? You can say that, oh, well, they already had the climax top volume. No. This was the bottoming candle. I think we're going to start to see these gap higher, okay, It's just a big gap higher. So we may already be putting in some climax tops here. We just need to see a very high volume, or it may follow that previous scenario where we had this volume here and we're moving up on less than lower volume until we hit these stalling action, like a double top. But I believe we're moving higher, a little bit higher, and we will see that. But all these stocks are putting in a blow off top formation, folks. Okay, this is what I want to illustrate. I know I'm rambling on, but I hope you see what I'm saying. I mean, can you see the similarities here? Okay, here's the VIX. VIX in 2020, same thing as today, 12.5. I've caught in a range between 12.5 to 17.5. And we had a previous, in our case this year, April crash or correction. So here's that pre-crash correction that we had, and then we just moved sideways. And then, of course, we start hitting the rock bottom into that 12.5 range area. Does this look similar to today's setup? And today's setup is very similar because we've had this April crash that led into this type of a decline in VIX, and now we're breaking below this average line, and I believe we're going to trend a little bit lower as we put in the climax top in the marketplaces. Okay, so the bottom line is the macroeconomic conditions are the same. Okay, there is a new monetary system that is being placed in, and that cannot happen until the markets crash. And we have watch Japan. We have the Japanese yen carry trade unwind as it's happening. Japan has bought significant amounts of U.S. Treasury bonds to control our own yield curve expansion. Okay, never in the history has there been another sovereign country taking over another country, in this case Japan's entire monetary system. But the end game is near, folks, and the markets are telling you that we are putting in a climax top. It's in progress. Market blow off top is forming, and climax top is in progress. So here's what we're watching. Retrospective analysis 2019 to 2020 COVID crash compared to current blow-off top formation shows you that while it's not exact, it is rhyming. And, if you've seen enough of these, in my case, for the last 38 years, it's just, your spidey senses start going up. All right. I am short-term bullish still. I think we're going to put in that blow-off top / climax top formation. Clarity Act on the cryptos got delayed until September, or is it? But if it is, it just means that they're not ready to completely flip the switch. And I believe the blow off top and climax top formation and the crash will start sometime in September. It's not coincidence, folks. Accumulate cryptos and precious metals, buy on any pullbacks. Don't fight the bull. Okay, Trump will pump this market to 8,000. I believe it, and maybe it doesn't quite get to 8,000, but it's going to get close before the correction. Blow off top is in progress. We're waiting for the climax top formations in the market. I believe on the SPY, we're probably maybe 2-3 weeks away from it, and expect the markets to grind higher, folks. We're watching Disney, Baba, Palantir. We're continuation higher. Blow off top, folks. Markets are going to start blowing off, okay? But you're going to see some of these high flyers beginning to kind of crater on great earnings. That's also a sign, warning sign. All right, so thank you so much for following me at Galaxy Stock Market. Follow us, like us, share us, and above all, comment and subscribe on YouTube. If you want to work with me, you have to email me at coachbrandon@protonmail.com. If you want to join our community, it is in the link in the description and profile. I can't talk this morning. Our membership information is there, $49. You get all the watch lists, commentaries, and videos like this. Okay, so be careful out there, okay? And, trade the markets that you see, not the one you want. Okay, bye-bye.